My story takes place in the fast-paced world of corporate marketing. For the past 7 years, I'd poured my heart and soul into Sterling Innovations, a successful tech company founded by David Sterling. I started as a junior analyst, but through long nights and tireless dedication, I'd worked my way up. My reward? A promotion to marketing manager, a role I was promised would come with a significant raise and a new level of influence. I thought my future was set, but it turned out to be the setup for my undoing. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It was a Tuesday morning when the email arrived. A company-wide memo from David Sterling, the CEO himself. My promotion was official. The email praised my hard work and leadership, naming me the new marketing manager. It was everything I had worked for, and I was on top of the world. My salary was set to increase by 25%, and I was finally going to be a key player in the company's biggest projects. But the good news was overshadowed by a second announcement. David's son, Kevin Sterling, was being brought on as the new director of operations. Kevin was a different breed from his father. While David was a visionary who valued hard work and loyalty, Kevin had a reputation for being a shark. He'd worked at a few startups that had either flamed out spectacularly or been sold for a quick profit. He was all about aggressive, short-term gains, and he had a condescending way about him that rubbed everyone the wrong way. I tried to stay positive. My team was thrilled for me, and I was genuinely excited about the new responsibilities. My first big task was to lead the marketing campaign for Sterling Innovations' new flagship product, Project Atlas. This was the one. If Atlas was a hit, I would be unstoppable. My first interaction with Kevin was a week later during a project briefing. He strode into the conference room like he owned the place, even though his father was sitting right there. He gave me a quick, dismissive nod and then immediately started poking holes in my team's preliminary ideas. He wasn't suggesting improvements, he was tearing them down. He looked at me and said, "Nick, you're a little too focused on long-term brand building. We need quick wins. Big numbers. We're not here to build a legacy, we're here to make a splash." It was clear he was going to be a problem. The rest of the month was a constant struggle. Kevin micromanaged my every move. He would send me emails at 2 a.m., demanding changes to campaign assets that had already been approved. He'd cancel meetings at the last minute and then demand to know why a project wasn't on track. The other team leaders were experiencing similar issues. The atmosphere at the office went from collaborative and innovative to tense and paranoid. I confided in Emily Carter, the head of HR. We had worked together for years and I trusted her completely. She listened patiently as I vented about Kevin's impossible demands. "He's making everyone's life miserable, Nick," she said. "I'm getting complaints from every department. But he's David's son. David loves that boy more than life itself." I just shrugged. "I know. But I'm just trying to get through this. Project Atlas is my baby. I'm not going to let him ruin it." I thought I could handle him, that my work ethic would win him over. I was so wrong. It was a chilly Friday morning when Kevin called me into his office. He was sitting with his feet on his desk, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up when I came in. "Sit," he said, gesturing with his thumb. I sat. He finally put his phone down and leaned forward, a smirk on his face. "Nick," he began, "I've been going over the new budget. And there are some discrepancies. You're set for a new salary, right?" "Yes, my promotion was approved a month ago," I said, a knot forming in my stomach. "It was in a company-wide email." He chuckled softly. "Oh, that was a mistake. We sent that out too early." See, David can be a bit sentimental. He likes to reward loyalty. But I'm here to streamline things. And the new director of operations has to make some tough calls. Your position, as it stands, is no longer necessary. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What?" My position is no longer necessary? I'm leading the Project Atlas launch. That's our biggest product in 5 years. Kevin leaned back, his smirk widening. Exactly. And I've decided to handle that in-house. My team will be taking over all marketing. We'll be using some more aggressive tactics. Things your team isn't quite built for. You're a great little worker bee, Nick, but this company needs a killer instinct. He slid a termination letter across the desk. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. It was official. Fired. The effective date was the end of the day. But the raise? The promotion? I've been here for 7 years. I was struggling to keep my voice steady. That's the part that really stings, isn't it? He said, his eyes glittering with malicious glee. You worked so hard for it, and then, poof. It's gone. But don't worry. I'm a generous guy. He took a sip of his coffee. Think of it as a gift. The gift of time. You'll have plenty of it now to find yourself. He didn't say it with a hint of sarcasm. He said it as if he truly believed he was doing me a favor. As if he was a benevolent God handing down an unavoidable truth. That's when I knew this wasn't just a business decision. It was personal. He saw my success as a threat to his own, and he was getting rid of me because he could. I stood up, my mind reeling, the world feeling like it was spinning on its axis. I didn't say another word. I just walked out of his office and went straight to my desk. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I gathered my things, packed up my personal belongings, and left the office without saying goodbye to anyone. I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour, the termination letter crumpled in my hand. I felt like I was in a daze. I had worked so hard, put in so many hours, and sacrificed so much of my personal life for this company. And for what? For a smug, arrogant, trust fund baby to come in and tear it all down on a whim. The tears came, hot and angry, streaming down my cheeks. I was devastated, but under the grief, a new feeling was beginning to simmer, a cold, hard rage. Chapter 3, The Discovery, A Secret in Plain Sight. My first week after being fired was a blur of shock and anger. I applied for a few jobs, but my heart wasn't in it. I couldn't shake the feeling of injustice. How could Kevin, who had been at the company for less than 2 months, just erase 7 years of my work? I went to a coffee shop to try and clear my head. As I scrolled through my phone, I saw a new post on LinkedIn. It was from a former colleague, a woman named Beth from the design team. The post was a congratulations message to Kevin Sterling for the successful launch of the new marketing initiative for Project Atlas. Below it was a picture of Kevin and a small team, a big banner behind them that read, Sterling Innovations, a New Direction. My heart sank. So he had already launched it. He hadn't just fired me, he'd stolen my project. I clicked on the photo and zoomed in. That's when I saw it. The team in the photo wasn't just his team. I recognized faces from an external marketing agency I'd worked with on a few smaller projects. But one face stood out. It was a man named James, who was supposed to be a consultant I'd brought in to help with market research. He was standing right next to Kevin, smiling broadly. I remembered a conversation I'd had with James months ago. He'd mentioned that his firm, Apex Marketing, was doing some work for a rival company, but that they were under a strict non-disclosure agreement. I hadn't thought anything of it at the time. Then I remembered a detail that had always bothered me. Kevin had been obsessed with my market research data for Project Atlas. He'd asked for a detailed breakdown of the spending, the target demographics, and the competitive analysis. I'd assumed it was just his micromanagement style. But what if it was more? I decided to call Emily Carter. She picked up on the first ring. Nick, I'm so sorry. I heard what happened. It's absolutely awful. Emily, I need your help, I said, my voice low and urgent. This isn't just about me getting fired. I think Kevin is doing something shady. I just saw a picture of him with a guy named James from Apex Marketing. Do you know if Sterling Innovations has ever hired them? Emily was quiet for a moment. No, Nick. We have a list of approved vendors. Apex Marketing isn't on it. And to be honest, David has a strict policy about working with external consultants without his direct approval. It's too much of a security risk. Okay, so here's what I think happened, I said, my mind racing. When I was putting together the Project Atlas campaign, I used a lot of my own research and data. I brought in a few consultants to help with specific tasks. Kevin saw that data, and when he fired me, he didn't just fire me. He fired the whole project and brought in an external firm to do it for him. He's using my data and research, but he's paying this other company to do it. And I'm willing to bet he's getting a kickback. Emily's voice was full of concern. Nick, that's a huge accusation. We're talking about fraud. You can't just go to David with this without proof. Kevin will deny it and you'll just look like a disgruntled ex-employee trying to get revenge. She was right. I needed proof. I needed to prove that Kevin had a financial arrangement with Apex Marketing, and that he was using company funds to pay them for a job he was supposed to be handling internally. I needed to show his father, and the board, that he was not only incompetent but also corrupt. I knew the first place to look was the company's financial records. But I no longer had access. That's where Emily came in. She was the head of HR and had a solid reputation for discretion. I called her again and laid out my plan. I can't access financial records directly, but I can pull up vendor contracts and invoices, she said. If he's paying Apex, there has to be a paper trail. Over the next few days, Emily was my silent partner. We communicated through a secure messaging app. She would send me redacted screenshots of what she found, and I would analyze them. It was like we were spies in our own company. The first thing she found was a series of small, strange payments. They weren't to Apex Marketing directly. Instead, they were to a shell company with a generic name, Innovate Consulting Group. The amounts were small enough to not trigger an immediate red flag, but they were consistent and frequent. Emily looked up the business registration for Innovate Consulting Group and found it was a P.O. box in a different state. The registered agent's name was K. Sterling. It was a dead end, but a telling one. Then, Emily found something else. A large payment had been made to a different vendor, a company that provided data analytics services. It was for a huge sum, far more than what we would normally pay for such a service. The invoice was vague, just a line item for Project Atlas data and analysis. This is weird, Nick, Emily wrote. We have an in-house data analytics team. Why would Kevin hire an external vendor for this? I knew why. He was paying for my data. But he was paying this other company, a company that was a front for the real recipient, Apex Marketing. He was laundering money through a series of payments to a variety of vendors, and the payments were structured to look like legitimate business expenses. I asked Emily to search for any correspondence between Kevin and Apex Marketing. She couldn't find anything on the company's servers. But then she had an idea. I remember Kevin saying he liked to work from his personal laptop. He used his personal email for a lot of his communication. This was a long shot, but it was our only shot. We couldn't get access to his personal emails, but we could look for a different kind of paper trail. I asked Emily to search for any contracts that Kevin might have had with Apex Marketing. She found one, tucked away in the legal department's shared drive. It was a consulting agreement between Sterling Innovations and Apex Marketing. The contract was signed by Kevin, but there was no signature from David Sterling, the CEO. It was a massive violation of company policy. The contract had a line in it that was so subtle, it was almost invisible. It said that Apex Marketing would be paid a consulting fee of 5% of the total project budget. That 5% was in addition to the standard payment for their services. The total project budget for Project Atlas was in the millions. That 5% was a hefty kickback. We had it. We had the evidence. The shell company, the vague invoices, the unauthorized contract, and the kickback. We had a clear case of fraud. But how could we present this to David Sterling without him immediately siding with his son? We needed to present it in a way that he couldn't ignore. Chapter 5, The Plan, the Boardroom Gambit. My plan was simple but risky. I needed to get David Sterling's attention, and I couldn't do it with an email or a phone call. I needed to corner him, and I needed to do it in front of a neutral third party. The board meeting was the perfect place. I learned from Emily that the quarterly board meeting was scheduled for the following Friday. Kevin was presenting his new vision for the company. This was my window of opportunity. I spent the next few days creating a presentation of my own. It wasn't a PowerPoint with flashy graphics, it was a dossier. It had everything we had found, the screenshots of the invoices, the contract, the business registration for the shell company. I also included a side-by-side comparison of the projected revenue for my original Project Atlas campaign and Kevin's new one. My projections were based on realistic market growth, Kevin's were wildly optimistic, based on the aggressive, make-a-splash marketing he was so fond of. I also included a final slide that showed the cost of my original campaign versus the cost of his, including the payments to the shell company and the 5% kickback. The difference was staggering. On the day of the meeting, I waited. I wasn't an employee anymore, so I couldn't just walk in. I waited in the lobby, dressed in a professional business suit, looking as if I belonged. I knew that the security guards, who had known me for years, wouldn't stop me. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was it. The moment of truth. I saw David Sterling walk out of the elevator, a stack of papers in his hand. He looked tired. I took a deep breath and walked up to him. "David," I said. He stopped, a look of surprise on his face. "Nick. What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice steady. "It's about Kevin. It's about Project Atlas." He frowned. "Nick, I don't think this is a good idea. You were terminated. It was a business decision. A business decision that cost the company a lot of money and a chance to truly innovate," I said. "And I have proof. I have a dossier that shows exactly what's going on." He looked at me for a long moment, a conflicted expression on his face. He loved his son, but he also loved his company. He was a man of integrity, and I knew that if I could just get him to look at the evidence, he would do the right thing. "Look," he said. "The board meeting is about to start. I can't just drop everything. But I'll tell you what. The meeting is scheduled to go for 2 hours. I'll give you 5 minutes at the end. Be here. And if you're lying, if this is just a revenge plot, you'll never work in this city again." I nodded. "I wouldn't risk my reputation if I didn't have the proof, David." He looked at me, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. He turned and walked into the boardroom, and I took a seat in the lobby, my heart still pounding in my chest, a small smile on my face. I had my foot in the door. Now all I had to do was kick it open. I waited for 2 hours that felt like an eternity. I had rehearsed my presentation a dozen times, but now, with the weight of my reputation on the line, I was second-guessing everything. The board members started to trickle out, looking serious and tired. Finally, Emily came out, a look of grim determination on her face. "He's ready for you," she whispered. I walked into the boardroom. Kevin was standing in front of the projection screen, a smug look on his face. He had just finished his presentation. David was sitting at the head of the table, his face unreadable. The rest of the board members were quiet, their faces betraying nothing. Kevin saw me and his eyes narrowed. "What is she doing here, Dad? I thought this was a closed meeting." "She has something to say, Kevin," David said, his voice flat. "Something about Project Atlas." I walked to the table and laid down my dossier. I didn't say anything at first. I let them look at the cover, a simple, professional title, an analysis of Project Atlas, a cost-benefit assessment. "What is this, Nick?" Kevin said, his voice laced with venom. "Did you write a report on your failed campaign?" "It's a report on your campaign, Kevin," I said calmly. "And the cost to the company." I started my presentation. I didn't use a projector. I just spoke. I laid out the facts, one by one. The shell company, Innovate Consulting Group. The vague invoices. The unauthorized contract with Apex Marketing. The 5% kickback. I showed them the side-by-side comparison of my campaign's projections and Kevin's wildly optimistic ones. I showed them the difference in cost, and the millions of dollars that were being siphoned out of the company's accounts and into Kevin's pockets. Kevin was red with fury. "This is insane. It's a lie. She's just a disgruntled ex-employee trying to get revenge. She's making all of this up." "Am I, Kevin?" I asked, looking directly at him. "Is Emily Carter lying too?" I gestured to Emily, who nodded. Emily helped me find the proof. "She knows everything." "You're a traitor, Emily." Kevin screamed, but it was too late. His anger was working against him. David was silent, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. He looked at his son, then at me. "Kevin," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Is this true?" It's not what it looks like, Dad," Kevin stammered. "It was just a small commission. A finder's fee. It's a normal business practice." "A finder's fee for what, Kevin?" I interjected. "For finding a company to launder money through? For stealing my research and my data and then paying someone else to use it? For costing this company millions of dollars?" One of the board members, a woman named Ms. Chen, looked at me and then at Kevin. "The documents seem to be in order, David. We have a serious problem here. This is a clear case of corporate fraud." David looked at Kevin, and the love in his eyes was replaced by a cold, hard disappointment. "Get out, Kevin," he said. "Get out of this room. Get out of this building. And don't come back." Kevin's face fell. He looked at his father, a pleading look in his eyes, but David just shook his head. Kevin grabbed his things and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The board was silent for a moment. "Ms. Ramirez," David said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I can't thank you enough. You've just saved this company." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The revenge was complete. I had won. But it wasn't a sweet victory. It was a cold, bitter one. I had lost my job, my trust in the company, and my sense of security. And David had lost his son. Chapter 7, The Aftermath, the CEO's Final Call. The next day, the company was abuzz with whispers. Kevin was gone. He had been escorted out of the building by security. The official announcement was that he had resigned to pursue other opportunities. No one was fooled. I was at home, sitting on my couch, trying to figure out what to do next. I had a few job interviews lined up, but my heart wasn't in it. The whole experience had left me feeling hollow. I had done the right thing, but at what cost? Then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. It was David Sterling. "Nick," he said, his voice weary. "I just wanted to call and apologize. For everything. For what my son did. For the way you were treated. It's my fault. I put him in a position he wasn't ready for, and I didn't see what was right in front of my face." "You don't have to apologize, David," I said. "You did the right thing." "I know," he said. "But that's not why I called. I called because I have an offer for you. I want you to come back to Sterling Innovations. Not just as the marketing manager. I want you to be the new director of operations. I want you to take over Kevin's job. I was speechless. David, I don't know what to say. Say yes, he said. I'm offering you a salary that's 50% higher than your original promotion. And a seat on the board. You were willing to risk everything to save my company, and for that, you deserve to be rewarded. You've proven that you have the integrity, the drive, and the foresight to lead this company. And besides, I need someone I can trust. Someone who won't just see a paycheck but who will see a legacy. I thought about it for a long moment. I could go to another company, start over, but there would always be the risk of running into another Kevin Sterling. Or I could go back to the company I had helped build and take the reins. I could right the wrongs that had been done to me and to everyone else. I could be the leader I always knew I could be. Yes, David, I said. I'll do it. I'll come back. Good, he said. I'll have the contract drawn up and sent to you by the end of the day. And Nick? Yes? Welcome home. And that was it. The story was over. My revenge wasn't just about getting even. It was about proving my worth, not just to a company, but to myself. And in the end, it wasn't about the revenge at all. It was about karma. I had worked so hard to build something, and Kevin had tried to tear it down. But in the end, I was the one left standing. And I was the one who was ready to build something even bigger. I went from being fired to being a director, all because I had the courage to stand up for what was right. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all.